All right, all right. What's going on, party people? This your man Grill. All right, so whew, pre-recording my Fritter Friday because I got seven signings tomorrow or today when you're seeing this here, and man, so I'm up late. It's 2 o'clock in the morning when I'm doing this recording on Friday the 17th, and I just finished prepping four out of the seven closings. Two of those documents is with the home builder, and more than likely we'll be just printing them at the model. And then my last signing of the day, haven't got the documents for those yet. So I just finished prepping those first two. Took me a little more than an hour. I mean, the first four, because I'm a little tired and just moving slow. But as the title says, I had to walk out of a signing, but I did go back. Okay. And I'm gonna give y'all the abridged version, I guess that's what they call it, or yeah, the abridged, not the unabridged. Drink my water here. Um, it was interesting, and I tell you, the NNA was great because the NNA I had to call the NNA to get some information from them. Excuse me, to make sure that well, I already knew what I was doing was correct, but I just had to make sure that everybody else knew. So, because nobody was really, one person wasn't taking my word for it. So I had to have some documented proof, some audio proof, them hearing from the NNA or hearing me talking to the NNA about the situation. So the situation was this. Go to a closing and the homeowners didn't they weren't fluent in English. Apparently, a lot of people didn't know, and a few people did know, but nobody knew to what degree of difficulty it was going to be. And this is why it's important to do things right because when I brought this situation up and, and told them, I was like, I don't believe I'm going to be able to do this closing because I got to be able to communicate with them in the same language, whether their language or mine. Okay. And I had to pull up documentation from the NNA, show the home builder people what the deal was, make sure the title knew, email them links to the NNA site so that they could see texted stuff to the builder's realtors that was there so that they could have it. And then we showed the the agent for the couple. So the agent told me, "Hey, look, I've been doing this for a long time, and I've been translating for my clients at the closings, and nobody's ever had a problem with this. I've done it for attorneys, so forth and so on. Nobody ever questioned it. So basically, it was like, what's your problem?" And I could tell the guy was upset because he was looking at me like you causing me to lose money. And I was like, it is what it is, man. I said, you're gonna have to find somebody that can speak in their language. That's a notary, or we hire somebody period. And the cost was relatively cheap. It was like $165. And I was like, okay, cool. Sounds good to me. But the guy insisted on getting his own. That was a neutral party that had nothing to do with the transaction. And that's basically what the NNA said, the NNA said for real estate transaction, it really does need to be a neutral third party, somebody that's not related. I called the NNA. I already knew that, but I wanted to make sure that I understood Virginia law. And Virginia doesn't give us any specific guidelines to this issue of having a translator. They don't say we should or they don't say we can't. So there's no guidelines. So NNA was saying our best practices that we would tell you is don't do it at all. Or if you are going to do it, make sure you have somebody who's a neutral party that has no interest in that property. I said, okay, fine. We explained that to the realtor. He said, I got somebody. He went, found somebody and said, we will get together later this evening. But the person who he has was not going to be available until 10:30 at night. And I was like, I was like, fine with me. Y'all know I'm up late. I'm up late now. So I was like, no big deal with me. Told the wife and my sons, hey, I'm gonna be out doing this, that, and the other. And we was good. Show up. Next thing I know, I'm sitting there and I'm putting everybody into the logbook, and the translator all of a sudden is like, I asked to see his ID. And at first, he didn't want to give it to me, and then I had asked him. He finally gave it to me. I think they said something to him in his language, and he gave me the ID, and I wrote it down in the logbook, and I put that he was a translator. Well, all of a sudden, he was like, "You need to make a notation in there in your logbook that I'm not giving legal advice." And I was something to that effect, and I said, "I know you're not. We're not asking you to give them any advice whatsoever. All you need to do is just hear what I'm saying and repeat it to them. That's it. You don't have to." He said, "Well, I mean, I don't know if I want to read the documents." I said, "Nobody's asking you to read the documents. That's not your purpose." And everybody else told him, said, "No, that's not your purpose. I mean, you got five people telling this person that's not your purpose to be here reading the documents." But they was insistent on that. "Oh, well, this is what I'm here to do." And we're like, "Who told you that? What made you think that that's not what you're there to do?" I said, "I'm going to say the document, what the document is." And all I was going to do is basically give the NNA version of a brief overview. And then they would just repeat what I said in that language. And I'm purposely not saying the language because I don't want anybody to think that I'm, excuse me, targeting a particular group or anything, because this could be with anybody. So he said, "Nope, I'm not doing it. I don't know. I don't really want to do it." So we was going back and forth for like 10 minutes. And I was sitting there like this. And I was like, and I'll be honest, I had to tell the guy, I said, "Look, what you're not going to do is come in here and tell me how I need to do my job." I said, "We're not going to do that." I said, "I know what I'm doing. I know how to do it. I know why I need to do it this way. I just need you to work with me and do your part, and we can get through this." End of story. And he was like being real hard. So asked him this question here. And this is where I figured I already knew where this was going, but I said I have to ask him in front of everybody to make sure that it's on record audibly. I said, "Are you going to sign the book?" And he was like, "No, I'm not signing that book." So, so I'm like, "Okay, so even if I had put in the notations or annotations that you told me, you still wasn't going to sign this book." And he's like, "No, I ain't signing the book." I was like, "Then that defeats the whole purpose." I was like, "Okay, deuces, I'm out." I was like, "We can't do this." And so I left. I got up, walked out, and I got lost because the building was sort of confusing on how to get out. The realtor found me and was like, "I got somebody else to come. I got somebody else, and they're going to do better. They're going to do what you need." I was hot. I was upset. I was offended because of the way the guy was treating me and talking down to me. And I'm talking about the translator, and I was like, "All right, I'm gonna give it another try." Because the couple, they was cool. They understood that they needed this to happen this way. Because earlier, when we was back at the house, and this is at 11 o'clock in the daytime when I first met them, and then you talking about almost 12 hours later. And it ended up being 12 hours later because we didn't get out of there till midnight. We actually finished like 11:56 or something like that, just a few minutes before midnight. For me to make sure that I knew whether or not they could actually understand and comprehend what I'm saying in English, I did the oath with them. And they couldn't understand, they didn't quite understand what I meant by the things that I said in the oath. So I was like, "Okay, well, if you can't understand that, you might not be able to understand anything else without the sufficient having a sufficient translator." Okay. So going back to that night, to almost basically 11 hours later, over 11 hours later, I said, "Okay, I'll stay." Go back in there. And the main reason why I also left was because I can tell this guy was getting on edge, and it's something I was just getting a bad vibe from him. I didn't know if he was going to try to do something. And I was like, I don't need to be caught up in nothing like that. So that's why I left to calm myself down and to remove myself from the situation because it got tense, really tense. Um, and the people they was looking at him like, "Why are you tripping? What's wrong with you? Why are you ticking the notary off?" And came back in, and as I'm coming in, he's leaving, and then he was demanding to see my notary logbook, and I was like, "No." He's like, "Well, I need you to take my name out of it." I said, "Well, sir, you saw me. I took the pen and I just scratched through his name, driver's license number, all of that, scratched through his name in the notary logbook." I said, "Shh." I said, "You didn't, I'm like, you didn't sign it anyway." Excuse me. Now, had he signed it, I wouldn't have did that. Um, but he hadn't signed it. So I was like, shh, I just scratched out, his name, driver's license number, all of that stuff. Just scratched through all of that. Address, all of that. And he saw me before I left. He saw me, and everybody saw me doing it. And he was like, "I need to look in your logbook and see that you did that." And I was like, "No, you don't." I said, "You got a court order? Because if you ain't got a court order, you ain't touching this book." And he was getting real adamant. And I got to the point where I thought he was going to try to snatch my book out of the bag, the logbook, the notary logbook. So I said, "You know what? I better leave because I don't know if he's about to attack me or what. I just know I need to leave." So I was like, "Deuces again." And I rolled and I hopped in my car so quick, floored it. And the realtor for the home builder called me and like, "Griff, we got him out the building. He's gone. He left the parking lot. Come back. The other person's coming and everything should be square." And I was like, "All right, I'm going to give this another try." So here's my third try at this. Got there, met the new translator. Excellent. Gave me the ID, wrote in the law book. They signed. Excuse me. Everything went according to plan and got in there. And me and that translator operated like we've been doing this for 20 years. I mean, we were just flowing. I would say something in English, they would say it in that language, and then boom, they was like, "Okay, got it." And they could speak a little bit in English, the couple. And I was like, "All right, boom," and did it. So it worked out fine, but it was just that first person was just being difficult. And I had to keep my composure, but at the same time, I realized that there was a potential of something bad happening. So I left. And I did not want to leave. And I understood the importance of it for the couple, but I knew that this guy was just getting out of hand. So I said, I got to remove myself from this situation. And I left pretty quick, but I really didn't go that far, to be honest with you. I mean, I wasn't that far down the road that I turned back around and was okay, cool. We here. Let's do this thing. And everything went smooth. The couple was happy. And I even saw them a couple of days later because I was back out at the model doing another closing. And the guy came in, spoke to me. I mean, had no animosity. And he understood once we talked, and I was communicate to them to some degree, and I did the oath, and they couldn't understand what they understood why they needed and why I was saying we need to have a translator. We got them in there, and everything was perfect with that. So the moral of the story is stand your ground to do things correctly. And notaries out there who aren't doing things correctly, it can adversely affect other notaries who are trying to do things correctly. This real estate agent was adamant that what he was doing was okay because nobody ever said it was wrong. It was 100% wrong what he was doing, being an interested party translating for his clients in front of a notary. That is not the way it's supposed to be done. The same thing if you're doing Ron, or if you're doing a credible witness. And on Ron, they said, "Well, we'll use the real estate agent that's a part of this transaction to be the credible witness." No, you cannot. You cannot do that. The real estate agent cannot be the credible witness in the story. The real estate agent can't translate, or anybody that's a part of it, that office, that real estate office, they can't do that. They're not supposed to do that. They're supposed to be a neutral third party. That's the whole point of the notary. Neutral, not no interest, no vested interest in this property whatsoever, or the transaction, will, power of attorney, etc. So you got to do things right. Now, with that said, by me doing things right, I gained a lot more respect from my client, the home builder, because they saw that I wanted to do things right. I gave them proof that it was supposed to be done this way, and they said, "Cool." And then we put together a plan and said, "Here's what we're going to do going forward." So we have a plan in place that if we ever come into that situation again, this is how we're going to handle it if somebody doesn't speak fluent English. So we either hire a translator, or if we can find a notary who is who speaks that language, a person that can speak that language and they're a notary, that's even better. You see what I'm saying? Much, much better. So everything went well after we got the right person in there. And I was just happy that the closing happened. Then the next day, I do a I'm doing a closing, couple selling the property. I get a call from my direct client. They say, "Hey, they was coming to our office to do this, but the wife is in the hospital. Can you go out to them?" Not a problem. Roll over there to them. Same time, actually, 11 o'clock in the morning. Don't know what it is about this 11 o'clock in the morning closings with people and their IDs, or the language thing. So I told them, I said, make sure you have your IDs, all of that, because I've been running across the problem where people in the hospital don't have their IDs with them. So they said, nope, that's not going to be a problem. I get there, and it was a problem because the husband lost his ID, but he had a picture of it. I was like, can't use a picture. I need to physically see the ID. Make sure that it's a real, not, that it's a real driver's license from your state. I got my Virginia, I mean, my, what is I got, this here, the ID guidebook. So, mm, stick you back on there. I got the Virginia, I keep saying Virginia, but the ID guidebook from the NNA and all of that. So I told him, hey, need to see your ID. He doesn't have a passport. Well, he does have a passport, but it's expired. Then he hands me this ID from his country of origin. I was like, okay, it's in a language that I can't read. Sorry, that's not going to do me any good. I don't know what this is saying. So I go into the ID book, find his country. I see an ID and I compare it. The ID that he had didn't match what was in the book. So I said, I can't use it. So he was hot. So I'm contacting the lawyer, telling them that's my clients, this one law firm. And they said, yeah, to let them look into it. They looked into it and they was like, no, we ain't touching it. Excuse me. Because they were going to have him come to the office and do it. And they was like, uh, so because they was like, well, where's these credible witnesses going to come from? And understanding that the credible witnesses can't be a part of the transaction, they was like, we're not going to even touch that. So he found two credible witnesses that aren't a part of the process, and I had to meet them at 7:30 at night. So we got that done. Then the following day, when I go deliver the documents, because they're in Newport News, Virginia, I'm down here in Virginia Beach. I take the documents to them, and they're like, "Oh, we got a possible problem." And I was like, "What's going on?" Well, the people who are buying the property from those who are selling, the people I did the closing with, they don't want to accept, or they have concerns about the credible witness. Excuse me. They were like, they don't understand it, and they couldn't find any information about it. So what do? I go to my handy dandy notary primer. You see, I got it nice and tabbed, and I go to the section that I got here called ID, and I show them that they can have credible witnesses. I go to the pages with the information about the credible witnesses and give them the code of Virginia that tells them how credible witnesses operate in our state. And I haven't heard anything back, so I assume everything is good. The bottom line again, the moral of the story is that you got to focus on doing things right. Had I not focused on doing those things right, it could have really messed things up. I did not get slick and just do it. I mean, just imagine had I did it and then they found out that the guy didn't have his ID, but I put in the law book that he did when he actually didn't have it, I would have been in a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble. So it's important to just make sure you do things right. Okay. So I'm happy at the outcome, gained a lot of respect from both of my direct clients. And I'm very, very happy because I decided to do things the correct way. What notaries are supposed to do. This is how he's supposed to operate. If you're not operating like that, or your trainer, or your mentor, your coach, they don't operate like that, you really do need to get away from. You really, really do need to get away from them and leave them alone because they are not somebody who you need to tie yourself with, okay? Because you could get into some serious legal trouble. It's one thing to not know how to notarize properly. It's another thing to do stuff completely illegal. You know how to notarize properly, but then you execute it illegally for as not having the proper IDs, not doing the credible witnesses correct, having somebody else translate when you need to have a third party, and you just let whoever that's tied into the situation do it. That's not the way you're supposed to do things. So you got to do things right early in the morning. Throat still just so dry. All right. So that's pretty much all I wanted to share with y'all for this Fritter Friday. Again, thanks everybody for liking, sharing, commenting. Would love to hear what you got to say about this here adventure that I had. But I am just so happy that I did things the right way. So I'm hoping that you will take heed to what I'm saying, do things right. If you have to walk away so you can preserve your sanity and your peace and not get caught up in something because somebody's acting crazy, excuse me, or potentially acting crazy, do what you got to do. Okay. And the main thing is my home builder, my client understood what was going on, as well as their client, the people buying the house. And those are the most important people. The people who was most important to me in that was the people buying the house. And the same thing for the couple that went to the hospital. I said, I got to do this right, man. I got to make sure it's done right. And he was upset and he was angry and this, that, and the other. And I said, I get it, but we got to do things right. And he calmed down. And I showed him in the book. And once he saw in the book and read it for himself, he chilled and he was like, you know what, got it. And the same thing with the first person, the agent, when he read what the NNA said that notaries need to be able to communicate in the same language as the person who's signing, then he chilled out and he was like, okay, that's when he said, okay, I'll get somebody. So he didn't know the law. He didn't know the best practices. I won't say the law. He didn't know the best practices. But once it became known to him, then he was like, okay, I gotta abide by that. And that's what I appreciated about him. He understood that he needed to abide by the knowledge that he has now, that the notary and the signers need to be able to communicate with each other without somebody else, if possible. But if it's going to be, that person got to be a neutral third party who has no interest in that transaction. So that's all I got for y'all. Thanks again. Really appreciate all the subscribers, all of the members. Y'all are just wonderful. We're gonna try to do something for this month for the members, but it's been hectic because I'm already over 50 signings for the month on this 17th day. Um, and that's not even that's counting the couple that I got, one on Saturday and one on Monday. So I'm over 50 for the month. I've done 20 closings this week ending the 14th through the 13th through the 17th, or really from the 12th through the 17th, or I'm sorry, 12th through the 18th, the whole 7 days. I got 22 appointments on my book. Two of them was general notary work. So 20 closings this week. Man, I'm tired, but I'm enjoying myself. So just want to thank y'all again. Thank y'all again for tuning in. When this video be playing, I'll be in the middle of doing signings. All right. Y'all have a good one. Peace.